Okay, it's 7 o'clock, and prior to opening the council meeting, we have a couple of public hearings that we need to dispense with. First is public hearing on ordinance number 371, which is the Armory project financing. And so I'll call that public hearing to order and ask if there are any here who wish to speak on either side of that issue. No one? Then that's a short public hearing. I'll declare that hearing adjourned. Next is a public hearing for ordinance number 373, which is cemetery fee increase. I'll call that public hearing to order. Are there any here who choose to speak on either side of that issue? None? There's another short one. Then I'll adjourn the public hearing on ordinance number 373. And I'll call a regular meeting of the Buchanan City Council to order. I ask that you join me in a moment of silence, please. Thank you. We'll respect the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have some guests from Wesleyan College. Hands, how many are Wesleyan College students? Going to ask you to stand up, move over this way just a little bit so you can face our camera. We want your name, where you're from, what your major is. This is part of the deal.
My name's Kevin Gataski. Kevin Gataski. I'm a senior criminal justice major.
Where are you from?
I'm from New Jersey.
New Jersey. Whereabouts in Jersey?
It's Paulsburg. It's right outside of Philadelphia and Camden, right between.
Haddonfield, New Jersey.
Jacob Wenenski, criminal justice, and from Pittsburgh.
What part of Pittsburgh? Don't say West Mifflin. Nothing good ever came from West Mifflin. Thank you for being here this evening. We appreciate your welcome. I want to change the order of our meeting this evening just slightly. The council would ask you to consider a strategic issue at G1 is the refinancing of the bond issue. And John, you have something you want to talk about on that?
Happy to explain it. Good evening, members of council. You'll recall that at the last meeting was presented for the city's consideration a resolution authorizing the refinancing of the 2008 bonds, which were done for West Virginia Wesleyan College. That was the Fleming Hall project. Subsequent to that meeting, we've tweaked the structure a little bit. It doesn't really impact, it doesn't impact the city's liability. You still have no liability on the bonds. You're a conduit issuer. We needed to clarify in the resolution that we had the ability to leave a portion of the 08 bonds outstanding, a very small portion, and also to potentially issue the bonds in more than one series. So we're reacting to market conditions at this point. So this resolution would replace the prior resolution.
Okay. David, comment?
Mayor, would you like me to read the resolution just by caption?
Please do.
That'll take a couple of minutes, and I just want to observe that as long-winded as you all think I am with my captioning and things, this is Mr. Stump's caption, so.
This is my fault. If you want me to read it, David, I will.
That's all right. Resolution number 2013-03 of the Council of the City of Buchanan, authorizing and directing the refinancing of all or a portion of the City of Buchanan Commercial Development Revenue Bonds, West Virginia Wesleyan College Project, Series 2008A, tax exempt, authorizing and directing the issuance of not to exceed $6,500,000 aggregate principal amount of the City of Buchanan Commercial Development Refunding Revenue Bonds, West Virginia Wesleyan College Project, Series 2013A, bank qualified, and the City of Buchanan Commercial Development Refunding Revenue Bonds, West Virginia Wesleyan College Project, Series 2013B, taxable, authorizing the execution and delivery of a trust indenture, a loan agreement, a tax regulatory agreement, or tax and non-arbitrage certificate, an escrow agreement, and a bond purchase agreement for the bonds, authorizing and directing the execution and delivery of such bonds, providing parameters for establishing the principal amounts, provisions for redemption and maturity of, and rates of interest on, and other terms and provisions of such bonds, authorizing a loan of the proceeds of the bonds to West Virginia Wesleyan College pursuant to a loan agreement for the purpose of facilitating the refinancing of all or a portion of the loan by the city to the college of the proceeds of the Series 2008A bonds, requesting the trustee to authenticate such bonds, appointing a trustee, registrar, and paying agent for the bonds, authorizing the distribution of a preliminary official statement and an official statement, authorizing execution and delivery of other documents, and the taking of all other actions relating to such financing. As Mr. Stump indicated, there have been some tweakings to the resolution since the last council meeting. I reviewed those very minor and nominal changes and certainly concur with him that it does not change the liability position of the city. The city has no exposure relative to this. Again, this is entirely a refinancing of monies that we went through the 2008 project for, and it's my recommendation that you approve this evening.
Motion to adopt resolution 2013-03.
So moved.
Motion made
Second.
and seconded. Further discussion?
Call for question.
All in favor signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. I thank y'all. I'd like to hold you for just a second and ask y'all, council, to consider G2, the third and final reading of ordinance number 371. We won't go to it, Dave. I would ask John if he would report to us on the meeting of the Building Commission.
Happy to, Mayor. The Building Commission has held three meetings as required by state law, and at each meeting has passed their ordinance authorizing the issuance of the lease revenue bonds for the Armory project. Prior to this meeting at 6:30 a.m. or 6:30 p.m., pardon me, we had a public hearing as required again under the code, and offered an opportunity for any member of the public to express concerns for or against the project. No member of the public appeared, and the Building Commission enacted the ordinance on third reading. So we've taken 3 of the 4 necessary steps by the Building Commission for the project, and once we're in a position to close the financing, there'll be one more reading by the Building Commission where they will authorize the exact amount of the borrowing. We'll have the principal and interest payment amounts in there. So it'll be add the specificity to the ordinance that we can't provide at this point in time. So the remaining actions of the City Council is to approve the ordinance leasing the portion of the Armory project from the Building Commission, because the revenues to pay the Building Commission bonds come from the lease by the city.
Any questions for John relative to that? John, thank you very much.
Have a safe trip.
Y'all are welcome to stay. I moved you up so you can beat feet if you want to. But you live in Charleston and you've got miles to travel.
Mayor, we will need a motion, a second vote on that, on the ordinance.
Yeah.
Okay, you're going to wait.
It's on
there,
agenda.
Oh, okay.
It's on our agenda to do so. We'll take it up at a regular time.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Department board reports, Michael?
Yes, one of you actually has my department report. I think I slipped it out when I passed that off to you, but I'll go ahead and wing it. You do have in front of you, on a couple pages in, the financial report ending March 31st, 2013. Revenue summary, year-to-date revenue is $2,662,019.23. Year-to-date expenditures, to that page, $2,543,763.75, which is a positive net difference revenue over expenditures of $118,255.48. Good news in reviewing our revenue projections in our budget. Our major revenues, being our ad valorem and our B&O tax, are projected to hit their mark by the end of April, so that's good. We'll have the third quarter financial report, since we just finished the third quarter, for our next meeting for your review. And as always, if you need any detailed revenue or expenditure lines, just please see me after the meeting. I'll be happy to supply a copy of that for you, try to give you the condensed version. A couple of items. I just want to remind council that we are laying the levy. It's something we do annually with our budget and our property tax. That will be a special meeting for Tuesday, April the 16th. I think it's noted in your packet, but just want to get that out there because that'll be before our next meeting. So Tuesday, April 16th at 10 o'clock here. Should only take about 5 minutes of your time. I also do want to update you on our health insurance, and some of you already know. We did get a slip on our health insurance renewal about a week ago. Our health insurance renewal for 2013-14 for our employees with Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield is actually decreasing by about 1.5%. So that's really good. We're meeting with a representative from Highmark next week to go over our renewal. We'll probably sign some pertinent documents to instate that renewal. And also we're going to have a discussion with her about some of the things that we're hearing in regards to the Affordable Care Act, or the Health Care Act, and as it relates to the definition of what qualifies as a full-time employee. And I think I might have mentioned that to you. Their definition within the Act is 30 or more hours. That's going to have a significant impact on our department heads moving forward, I think effective January 1. So we'll find a little bit more about that from Lacey, who's our representative with Highmark next week. Anyone on council is welcome to attend that. If you want to attend that, just let me know, and be happy to have you attend. I do also want to mention that Robbie Barber started this week as our full-time horticulturalist. Wanted to put that in as record. And finally, after our last council meeting on the 21st, and there was some discussion about what we were hearing from the Consolidated Public Employees Retirement Board, I actually took it upon myself the next day, Friday, March 22nd, to contact Mrs. Trump. Mrs. Trump is basically the Public Employees Retirement System Manager or Director of the Public Employees Retirement System Board, and had a pretty lengthy phone conversation with her to get some clarification on exactly what the Public Employees Retirement Board was discussing or mentioning as far as our utility boards. After a discussion with her, kind of bantering some things back and forth, I just kind of started to see obviously the writing on the wall, and asked her to give us an official letter. And what you have in front of you is a copy of that letter in response. We're still awaiting an official letter from her, but this will suffice, and you'll kind of get the drift. And if you don't mind, I'll read a little bit from this. Any board member of the Water, Waste, Sanitary, and Consolidated Public Works Divisions of the City of Buchanan is not eligible to participate in PERS, or Public Employee Retirement System, as these boards are not considered to be a legislative body of a political subdivision. In this case, the City Council is the legislative body of the city and its subsidiary entities. Therefore, board members of the subsidiary entities are not eligible to participate in PERS. Upon receiving that email, I've instructed office staff we will not be taking out retirement from this point forward for our board members, and we are notifying those board members, as we can. So I wanted to put that back to council and let them know where we stand on that one. If there's any direction council would like to take on that, we'll certainly be advised on that. But at this point, effective for this month's pay, our board members will not have retirement taken out. Then once they get the April report, they will actually send us back a form that we have to fill out with instructions to get those adjustments back for the city and for those employees that contributed. So just to let you know that. Okay. Other than that, unless there's any questions, I'll probably have some things to say throughout the meeting, executive as well.
Questions from we got to go back to item B1 on the agenda, and that's we like to welcome our Wesleyan College students here. And the ones who came early, they get extra credit, professors, right? But if you want credit, you have to stand up here, face the camera, give us your name, your major, and where you're from, please. Start back here.
Wow. This fine right here?
Yeah.
My name is Hassan Burton. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I major in criminal justice.
Very good.
Come around or just...
Now stand, that's all right.
Jeremy Musselman from Frederick, Maryland. I'm a criminal justice major.
Xavier Stewart, Prince George's County, Maryland, from major business administration. Chase Blackwell, I'm from Tempe, Arizona, and my major is sports business.
Is that a college student back there? Welcome. We're pleased that you come. Mitch? Fire Chief.
I have a couple of things. We've ordered some new gear. We ordered 7 new sets of turnout gear, just pants and coat. Going to set us back to doing about $15,000. We're going to start doing our hose testing next week. We have some new firemen that completed their basic Fireman 1 program, and we continue to train those guys 3 or 4 days a week. At some point throughout the day, we're putting them through the rigors of our training process. And Ron was at a meeting today with the Upshur County Fire Association, and we approached the county commission again. Had some discussion with them about acquiring a copy of their mapping and addressing to assist us in some of our pre-planning and other functions that we do. So we're kind of working along with that. We continue to talk about for them to release that to us, they want us to put them, David may have to help me some of the legal terms, as we put a rider on our insurance to name the county commission has an additional insured on our insurance policy.
Which would basically relieve them of any responsibility in case somebody makes changes on the E911 maps or addresses or anything after it's given.
I don't know why we would ever make changes, and I don't know that the copies that they give out, I'm not so sure that we could make changes to it anyway.
I just thought it was it's a bit paranoia otherwise.
But anyway, I met with their insurance agent today, and to do that, it's going to be a minimal charge. He said it the most would be about $150 a year, or $150 to get added to to get them named as an additional insured on our insurance policy. So it sure would be nice to have that stuff. We can use it. We're not so much worried about addresses. We know where those are, but a lot of them are. The hydrants are supposed to be GPS coordinated. We should be able to. They should be able to tell us. We should be able to figure out where our nearest hydrant is and our cross streets. There's a lot of information that's on there that's very useful to us to assist us in making our pre-planning and inspection process a little better. So
I think that one of the main things it would help with is outside the city limits, help in determining what the weight bearing bridges are, how much the weight is for the trucks to go over, and items like that has been changed and may constantly change. Will alert the fire department as to what that is. And it's in their computer, which is very handy to get to.
Well, I think this issue, Michael, you can handle this. See what we need to do, and if we're talking about $150 a year, I don't think there's any.
Yeah, I have a question. Maybe I missed this, but the county is not giving us mapping information because we're not putting them as a rider on our insurance.
they won't release it until we name them as an additional insured on our insurance.
Okay.
That doesn't apply to the county departments.
I don't know why.
I don't know why either.
I'm not going there either.
They said it
Well, we'll.
But anyway, we're going to follow up on that. I'll get with Mike on it. We laid a lot more groundwork today. We made a lot more progress today than we have, so hopefully.
Actually, that part of the commission meeting was pretty good.
I think we can maybe get that worked out. So there's a lot of information there that would be helpful to us. So we've been busy. We've ran about, I don't know, 10 or 15 calls, about 10 or 12 calls in the last 24-hour shifts. You guys have been turning some wheels. So if you don't have anything, that's all I have.
Questions for Mitch? Thank you, Mitch. Jay Holland, City Engineer.
Always fun. I have a very short list this evening. On the Gateway East Enhancement Project, I have nothing new to report, other than the fact that I have ordered the 43 light poles, and we can expect their delivery sometime the first week of April. SHPO is still conducting their review of the project, and I'm waiting for notice to proceed.
April or May?
Sorry, May. May for the light posts. Yeah, sorry. On the Army National Guard complex, we had the bid opening for the waterline materials last Wednesday, and after some review of those products that were submitted to make sure they conform with specifications, I've decided to award the project to HD Supply, and their bid for those waterline materials that will be needed is just under $130,000. All total, with the material that we're going to purchase and the materials that have to be purchased locally, like the concrete and the gravel and the asphalt and some equipment rental, I'm happy to report that the total material project for this Army National Guard waterline will be only $170,000 as opposed to $190,000. You know, we had some nice competitive bids. We had a total of 6. 4 of them were within $5,500 of each other, so we were able to reduce the overall cost of the project by about $20,000, and we hope to start with the construction of the water line the first week of May 2019. McDonald's lane widening, as I reported to you all last council meeting that I attended a design review meeting the following week, which was March 14th. The engineering division of the DOH is still recommending alternate number 1, which is adding of a turning lane from Victoria Street to Marion Street. However, NEPA, which is the National Environmental Policy Act, requires that the West Virginia DOH Environmental Division and SHPO conduct yet another review of the project. So that's currently what's going on, and that has pushed the start date for that project back to May of 2014. And with that, that is all I have this evening, unless you all have some questions.
I would like to ask you if you can remember the verbiage about the significance of the shrubs.
Okay, as part of that review that NEPA is requiring, there has to be a historical review of the properties involved with this lane widening. And one of the concerns is that the shrubs at the corner of Kanawha Street and Victoria Street, which is the red house across from McDonald's, that the shrubs that are growing there may have a contributing element to the historical significance, to the historical structure at the intersection of Victoria Street and Route 20. So that's part of the, not sticking point, but that's part of the review process that is being conducted to determine whether or not the hedges at that particular house are of historical significance to this project.
And that's what we're dealing with.
That's part of what we're dealing with. That's not all. You know, there's utility relocations and all that, but that is part of it.
Any questions for Jay? Thank you, Jay.
Yes.
Jerry Arnold, Street Relations Commissioner.
Consolidated board report. Consolidated board met last Thursday, and there were members of the Wheelo Scouts, Cub Scout Pack, one of the folks that led the Pledge of Allegiance, and asked Consolidated Board for their approval to participate in the Mountaineer Treeway Program, which ordered 70 trees that they will help plant around different areas in Buchanan on public lands. A lot of them going back into the city park. And the board approved that. They also approved a request from Create Buchanan to place signs at Jolbell Park, better identifying the park. Had a request from a family to place a bell as a memorial or a stone for a family member in the cemetery, and that was tabled and presented to Dave McCauley to take a look at the liability on the city's part. It looked like a fairly valuable bell, and the board was worried about theft and or vandalism to it. The board was presented with the Pecan Street curbing project bid specifications. That is out. We have bids coming in on the 11th of April for the curbing project. And that was it was a pretty short meeting for Consolidated. I wasn't there, and Lowell took it up, so. Waste Board met this evening, and Michael presented the 2013-14 budget for the board's review. We received a letter from the American Red Cross, and it was a thank you letter to the board and our employees for providing waste services during the Hurricane Sandy storm at their relief kitchens. Also approved the purchase of a pressure washer for our truck wash project at the waste garage. Approved the bid specifications and solicitation of bid for a 75-yard closed-top transfer trailer. And approved the placement of 4 bins around town for the Make It Shine, April Make It Shine month. Those bins, just to make it clear, will be at the Public Safety Complex, the water plant on Wood Street, the City Park, the North Buchanan Park. Will be available by Saturday morning, each of the 4 Saturdays, April 6th, 13th, 20th, and 27th. Again, we encourage the residents of Buchanan to take advantage of that, clean up their properties. It's a good opportunity to really clean up and make Buchanan look better. Transfer station, we had a total of 1,397 transactions and a total weight of 1,069 tons for March, and total money $88,859.53. Recycling had 41.24 tons in March and a total of 145.44 tons for the first quarter of the year. Just in announcements, remember, this is Make It Shine Month. We're going to have the celebration of recycling Friday, April 19th from 10 till 6, and Saturday, April 20th from 9 to 2, and there will be a residential shred event taking place on that same Saturday at Crossroads from 9 until 12. And just one other thing, Mayor, I think that Make It Shine Month, and Teresa brought it to my attention this morning and got me to thinking about it. You know, Don Gasper was instrumental in Make It Shine Month, and he always put on a presentation for Earth Day. He was involved with the Buchanan Watershed, and Don passed away in January. And just like to remember Don for everything he contributed to the recycling program here in Upshur County. That's all I have, unless there's questions.
Questions from Jerry? Thank you, Jerry. Rich Clemens, zoning housing.
Just to echo some of Jerry's comments, I've already gotten 3 or 4 calls past few days regarding properties that need some attention, need to be cleaned up, trash in the yard. Maybe you ought to walk around and take a look at your property from the neighbor's viewpoint. I find a lot of houses and garages that have a collection of items in the back or out of sight to them, but they're in plain view to your neighbors. Maybe this would be a great time during April to get rid of those at no cost to you. Just get them to one of these dumpsters. But what solved my problem in trying to answer some of these phone calls and getting people to clean up their property and their front porches and whatever else they might have accumulated some items over the winter that could get rid of. Also, just a quick reminder that it's starting construction season. If you're in the city, whether you're putting in a fence or adding on or repairing something inside or outside, you permits. If you're in the flood zone, that requires even more detail and more time to get those applications complete. So don't wait to the very last moment, please. Give us a week or 2. If you're in the flood zone, at least 2 weeks, maybe longer, depending upon where you're at and what you're trying to accomplish. So be happy to work with you, but we've got to have some time to process that information. That's all I have.
Questions for Rich? Dave McCauley, City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. Working with Mr. Ludlow on some right-of-way issues. It's a little premature to comment about that, but Sam will be talking with you about that very soon. Still waiting on the final draft being approved by the Armory Board, the lease with our Armory Readiness Center, Conference Center project. We've subtly prompted Scott Barnett, counsel with the board, 3 times in the last 2 weeks, but he's a busy guy too, so hopefully we'll know something here in the next few days on that. I have a draft, this is not a first reading, but a draft of the Crossroads ordinance, and this ordinance really doesn't apply just to the Crossroads Recycling Center. And it'll just take me about 2 minutes to run through the caption of the ordinance and the whereases, and I'd ask everybody to take a peek at this, especially Jerry Arnold. Between now and next Thursday, with the council's blessing, I'd also have our municipal court judge Levine make sure that it passes his muster in case someone gets cited under this ordinance, because there are some criminal sanctions to it. This will be 2 weeks from tonight. Ordinance number 374 of the City of Buchanan, and Ordinance 1 prohibiting various activities at the City of Buchanan's Solid Waste Transfer Station and Recycling Center on Mudlick Road and at the city's Crossroads Recycling Center. And 2, establishing penalties for persons violating the provisions of this ordinance. Whereas the City of Buchanan, by and through its Waste Collection Board, owns, operates, and maintains waste collection, waste transfer, and recycling facilities within or near the city's corporate limits in Upshur County, West Virginia, all as authorized pursuant to state statutes. And whereas the Waste Collection Board's facilities include 1, the primary location on Mudlick Road, just to the east of Buchanan's corporate limits, and 2, the Crossroads Recycling Center, immediately adjacent to the Buchanan Walmart. And whereas problems have arisen respecting citizen drop-off procedures at the city's waste collection and recycling facilities, and whereas these problems include residents, 1, leaving general household waste and garbage at the gate at the city's transfer station on Mudlick Road or at the Crossroads Recycling Center, 2, improperly mixing recyclables, particularly at the Crossroads Recycling Center, or 3, failing to properly insert recyclable materials into the designated repositories. And whereas the city's Waste Collection Board incurs substantial cost and expense as a consequence of addressing the foregoing problems, and the City Council desires to specifically declare such activities as being unlawful. And finally, whereas Chapter 8, Article 12, Section 5, Paragraph 58 of the West Virginia Code grants plenary power and authority unto the City of Buchanan's governing board to provide penalties for offenses and violations of law, now therefore be it ordained and enacted by the Council of the City of Buchanan as follows. And then the articles that follow, the findings, for the most part, repeat the whereas paragraphs that I just read to you. Article 2 establishes 5 specific prohibited activities which generally embody those things that I read in the whereas paragraphs. I think Jerry would tell you, and he's here, he could tell you, that the primary problem is people just leaving things on the ground out at the Crossroads Recycling Center, or putting household garbage into the bins, or putting glass in the places where they're supposed to be plastic, or mixing the newspaper and the plastic products. As a consequence of this, it takes a lot of either resortment by the guys out at the main transfer station, recycling center, or sometimes things are contaminated to the point where they just have to throw out a whole load because of what's been mixed in inappropriately. As the council is aware, the city is expending a lot of money to put in a security surveillance system out there to monitor for these things. So the idea, connecting now the ordinance with the equipment that will be installed to better police this. The penalties, again, as so many of our ordinances are progressive, there is no jail time involved with this, but a first offense within a 24-month period is a $100 fine and goes up to $500 or more for ensuing subsequent offenses. So it's not ready for first reading. It's been our practice here of late to try to get you an ordinance at least a couple of weeks in advance of a first reading. So homework assignments for everybody to check this out and weigh in on it for the next council meeting. A couple of other real quick things. I already mentioned the Armory lease. Matt Gregory and Mitch Tacey have both inquired with me in the last 2 weeks since the last council meeting about where we stand with the residency issue, particularly with first responder employees. It's becoming more of an urgent matter because the Police Civil Service Commission will soon be making recommendations to you all for a hire of a new police officer. There's prospects of perhaps soon looking at a new firefighter. So it'd be nice to have something policy-wise in place before those couple of new hires would be made. So again, just ask you to give some more thought to that. One matter that I haven't mentioned, and I need to mention it, at some point with the recent 60 acres that was annexed as part of the Armory project on Brushy Fork, from a zoning perspective, when property is annexed into the corporate limits under state law, it comes in as the most restrictive zone in communities that have zoning. So all of that 60 acres or so that we recently brought in is presently R1. That's not very well suited to what that property is going to be used for. So at some point between now and the time that the center actually opens, it'll be necessary for us to revisit our comprehensive zoning map and ordinance 244 and to make provisions as to how that should best be zoned. We don't presently, even though the old Armory was in the corporate limits, we don't have a military zone. Some cities have actually created a new zone which is very liberal relative to those types of things that occur at Armory, such as the one that will be out there. So we've got plenty of time to think about this, but I just wanted to let the council know that that is something you want to visit. And you don't want to wait 2 years down the road when the place is already operating to start identifying those things. So that's pretty much it. I would also mention it would still be a good idea if we could have a meeting of the TV cable board at some point in the next month or two. One of our TV cable board members continues to ask me if we're going to have a meeting scheduled, so I've done my civil duty here tonight. Any questions, I'd be happy to.
Questions for Dave? Okay, we'll move ahead to correspondence. I do have a resignation letter from Scott Preston, which I will read. April 4, 2013. Dear Buchanan residents, friends, colleagues, and fellow council members, it is with great reluctance that I tender my resignation from Buchanan City Council prior to the end of my term, effective this date. My employment assignment was modified on March 20th, and my new assignment prevents me from attending many of the regularly scheduled council meetings. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve. I'm pleased with the progress our city has made over the years since my election, as we are fiscally stronger and better prepared to meet current challenges and opportunities and those of the future. My one regret is that the referendum to review our city charter failed. The charter review is a two-step process by the voters of Buchanan. Step one was answering the question, should we review our charter, yes or no? Step two would be to approve or disapprove proposed changes. I hope when the opportunity presents itself, the voters will affirm the need to review our charter and thoughtfully consider any proposed changes. The future leaders of our city need to have a modern operating platform based on current principles and best practices and not those rooted in the early 1930s. I will continue to support opportunities for positive change for our city and community and will remain active in the Buchanan Volunteer Fire Department and the Create Buchanan organization. I want to say thank you to the many city employees that endured my questions and always made me feel welcome. And lastly, a heartfelt thanks to the voters who trusted me to represent them on council. Sincerely, Scott Preston. I would entertain a motion to accept this resignation from Scott Preston.
So moved.
Motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
And second. Any discussion? All in favor signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. We need to, on that note, I think we need to consider how we're going to go about the process of replacing Scott Preston. Is this something, I know it's a public issue, we'll discuss it publicly. A couple of options that we have, and I know at previous times we have, I don't think during my tenure, but previous times I know the council has gone back to the previous election and taken the person who had the next highest number of votes and simply offered them the job if they wanted. And At other times, we've taken applications. Is there any discussion on that particular matter? I was always an advocate of going back and giving it to who had the next highest number of votes. Personally, I like that, but
When is his resignation effective immediately?
it's effective this date, April 4th. Yeah.
And are we required by the city charter to appoint a position? I mean, you're looking at 15 months.
I think the
Is that
charter
correct?
says that we shall, as council.
I can't remember. David, you remember what the charter says?
Yes, the language is mandatory. There are no time constraints set forth in the charter or by state code, but it's something that the residual council should take up as soon as possible.
Yeah.
The idea being you want to try to compose a body of 7 people as is anticipated by the charter.
Right.
I wouldn't have any problem either way, I suppose, but somehow it seems like we ought to at least give folks an opportunity. We have 2 now that have at least expressed an opportunity or an interest, and there may be others.
I've had a phone call from a third who's sending an application.
So I'd be inclined to leave it open. And
Well, it's supposed to be kept in executive session, so it's interesting that people found out about it.
Yeah.
After the executive session.
Well, it was in the newspaper.
It was in the newspaper, okay.
Yeah, but how the newspaper got it, I don't know.
I got a call, I was
Those
surprised.
Washington leaks.
Yeah, the walls have ears. It's not a big thing.
But I personally think we need to take letters of interest because there are other people that, other than the letters we've received, were on the election the last time. And I would like to do an interview. We have done that in the past, and I think that worked out better.
We have done so in the past.
Well, I got it. One thing I'm very concerned about is that it was not under your tenure, Kenny, but we had some issues before where council members were not aware of people that were interested in applying for the interim position. And I think whatever we do, it should be very transparent. And if we do the application process, I think the council members have the right to really interview everybody that's indicated they have an interest.
I totally agree with that. If we're going to take letters of interest, we're all going to look at them, that's for sure.
But I also think it's not, I guess I want to think about it for a while. I think going back to the next highest vote getter is not a bad process either. And, maybe that.
Sorry to interrupt, Dave.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Ron.
I was going to say that we have 2 good applicants that have professed their interest in it right now, and I'm sure we will have some more. But considering my take on one of the local county elections this past election, where the second highest vote getter was denied being able to run for office, I've always felt like if you come in second, then if somebody doesn't take it, then the second highest vote getter is the one that should get it. Even though there may be others out there that are they may be as well qualified, but that person put in the time and the effort and the money to run for the office, and I'd be inclined to go with the second highest vote getter. My opinion.
Well, we can, let's take these letters of interest until next council meeting, and we'll kick it around some more.
Good.
Obviously, we have a little difference of opinion here.
Who are the people that put the letters of interest?
The 2 that we have right now are Michael Cowder and Tom O'Neill, and I received a phone call from Mike Sharpleski, and he said he will make an application.
And Michael Cowder came in second in the mayor's race. So.
Yeah, and you could make the argument that he ran for mayor and that Tom O'Neill sitting back there ran for council. So, I mean, there's just different ways of taking a look at it. So, okay, we'll let that horse lie. And
I do think we ought to do something at the next council meeting, though. I don't like to go with that.
yeah, I don't think we ought to tarry. We have also a request for a 5K run overland missions on April 16th at Walk Trail Park. You have that in your, well, this says 16 and this says 19. Is that two different ones?
Could be the typist of the agenda. Let me note that I think the critical issue here, this one's a little different, so make sure we're paying attention. They're requesting a 5K run on the walk trail starting at 9 p.m. and going till midnight, using glow sticks as part of the race. And although it sounds pretty cute, and I don't know whether there's anybody in the room that wants to speak to this, I invited them to come, but I don't think they're here. Anyhow, our park's closed at 9 p.m. And I would have some issues, particularly with our liability insurance from last time. And just my opinion, I would be encouraged to deny this request. I'm all for 5K runs, but I think they need to be held during daylight hours, not only for the people running, but also for motorists.
If this were a 9 p.m. to 12 p.m. thing under the lights at the football field or something like that, that'd be a different situation. We have no lighting whatsoever at the walk trail.
And there's some places on the walk trail that are pretty darky.
I would hesitate to go there myself, even though we have glow sticks out. We might interrupt some illegal trade of some sort down there too.
I go there every night. I go there every night after dark. Everything I meet is afraid of me.
That's understandable.
I would move that we do not allow this.
I agree.
Motion to deny, motion made and seconded. Is there further discussion? Call for question. All in favor signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And we'll notify them. Consent agenda, you have the approval of minutes of the regular meeting March 21st, special meeting March 28th, approval of building and wiring permits, approval of the payment of the bills, cemetery mowing agreement, housing authority appointment of Roy Law to fill vacancy, housing authority reappointment of Margaret Kelly, and an annual outreach letter to residents in the floodplain. I would note that on the housing authority, both of these people have been contacted and have agreed to serve. Motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion. All in favor signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. David, third and final reading ordinance 371 at the conference center finance.
Mayor, if I could just make one brief remark. Mr. Stump appeared here this evening, both during your hearing before the actual meeting started and then later after the actual meeting started. And folks it's like, well, gee, who's that John Stump representing? Yeah. Mr. Stump's area of expertise in the law is bond counsel. And believe you me, I've often compared myself in the scope of legal activities. I'm a pretty good plumber, but I don't do electrical work. And Mr. Stump is an electrician. He specializes in bond work. We have two current bond matters before us. One is the city's participation with the State Armory Board on the Readiness Center Conference Center at the new National Guard Armory Complex. The other is the refinancing of college bonds that were taken out using the city as a conduit in 2008. Mr. Stump was wearing two different hats here this evening. He is bond counsel for the city, in addition to me being general counsel for the city on the National Guard Complex. And he is bond counsel for Wesleyan College on the refinancing of the bonds. So this ordinance 371 has to do with the National Guard Complex. It has nothing to do with the college bond stuff that you already approved by resolution. So I'll read this by caption only. This is the third and final reading of ordinance number 371 of the City of Buchanan. An ordinance authorizing the acquisition and construction and equipping of a conference center as part of a West Virginia Army National Guard Readiness Center, together with all necessary appurtenances thereto, by the City of Buchanan Building Commission, authorizing and the leasing of such facilities by the City of Buchanan Building Commission to the City of Buchanan, approving the sale, issuance, and delivery of not to exceed $765,000 lease revenue bonds, Series 2013A, by the City of Buchanan Building Commission to provide funds to finance a portion of the costs of such acquisition and construction and related costs and expenses, prescribing the forms and authorizing the execution and delivery of an agreement and lease and other instruments, and authorizing and approving other documents and matters relating to the terms and security of such bonds, and providing for certain other matters in connection therewith. It's a strong recommendation that you consider this and pass this on third reading this evening, Mayor.
Motion for third and final reading approval of ordinance number 371.
So moved.
Motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
And second. Is there further discussion?
Call for question.
All in favor signify so by saying
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. 372.
Ordinance number 372. This is a second reading of this ordinance, and this particular ordinance only requires 2 readings. So if you react favorably to it tonight, 30 days henceforth, it shall become the law of the City of Buchanan. Ordinance number 372 of the City of Buchanan, and Ordinance 1, prohibiting smoking and the use of all other tobacco products in all city-owned parks and recreational facilities, and 2, establishing penalties for persons violating the provisions of this ordinance. As I mentioned at the last council meeting, this has been also thoroughly reviewed by our municipal court judge, and he is fine with the sanctions that would be imposed by this ordinance if you adopt it this evening. So it's now mature for your consideration.
Motion to approve ordinance 372 on second and final reading.
So moved.
And seconded.
Second.
Is there discussion?
Mayor, may I? I think I signed up to be a speaker for this, and it's actually for this ordinance that I did sign up to speak.
Okay, Rick.
Would now be appropriate?
It is.
Thank you, sir. Unfortunately, it looks like I may be the only one here that is a smoker, perhaps, and it is against a part. I stand and rise in opposition to parts of your smoking ordinance. Before I do that, though, what I do want to do is recognize Joyce and Matilda for their efforts, and it's fantastic. It's unfortunate that I have to be here as a smoker to do that. I consider myself a responsible smoker. I put my butts out. I don't smoke around in the parks and around kids. Ex-AYSO referee. I understand that, so I want to appreciate that. I'll let you know Ray's did a great job. But having said that, Mayor, there's 2 issues that I take with this ordinance. You tasked Mr. McCauley with drafting an ordinance, and then his due diligence, which is always very due and diligent, he pulled together an ordinance for you that I think conglomerated just about every ordinance considering tobacco use that has ever been passed. I did find one in Washington that didn't actually regard to this, but I think you failed to see that one. Having said that, my first issue with it is, of course, your electronic cigarette. And I hate to use the term electronic cigarette because it is not that. It is actually a nicotine delivery device. Now, we've had people up here talking about drugs and cannabinoids and terpenoids. What I am going to tell you is that this is in absolutely no way a smoking or tobacco product. I don't believe it belongs in your ordinance. It is actually, if you want to compare it to anything, you can compare it to a plastic-wrapped fog machine. Same thing Mr. McCauley uses every Halloween. What it is it's heated up, and it blows out a vapor, and the chemical inside that vapor is actually the same thing that makes Mr. McCauley's fog machine go. The second issue I have with this ordinance is the penalties. I believe that 24 months is excessive. I believe that 12 months should be the case. Either way, we all understand that the $50 really isn't the issue. It's the court costs and the fees that go with that. If you continually adjust that up, it really gets to be quite an expensive ordeal. It may stop smokers, it may not. My other question or comment would be that if you ban nicotine devices you would also have to ban patches, lozenges, and gum. I know that nobody's gonna go around looking for patches and call the police on it, but that is technically the same thing. So having said that, gentlemen and lady, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. I think I spoke in the past about my concern. I'm not all for this, I'm for this. My concern is, how do we enforce it? And are we just going through the motions and putting something on the books that we're not going to enforce? And I've had a number of comments from smokers who are not so opposed to it. They just want a designated zone. They want a place where they can go away from other people and smoke. How do you, council, feel about amending this ordinance to include a designated smoking area in these parks, away from the crowd? Comment?
I'd be glad to speak to that to some extent. Talk about enforceability. But if I'm not mistaken, I don't remember the number of it, we have a ordinance on the books that says what you can and cannot put down the drain, city sewers. I don't think we enforce that. Not sure how we could enforce that, but that's not an issue. We still put that ordinance on the books, and it's an important ordinance because the health of our water systems and the health of the river and so on depend upon what we as individuals flush down the toilet. Extra prescriptions or medications can be very, very harmful to the system. So it's one of those things. We, as reasonably civilized organization, country, tend to stop at stop signs. We don't have a police officer at every intersection. We only have 3 or 4 at most on duty at one time, so they can't be at every stop sign. But yet, people follow that. If we had put in a smoke-free park, then I think we're setting an example. We're trying to encourage it. I gave members of council and the press tonight an article which didn't take long this afternoon to find on the internet. I just put in cities with smoke-free park ordinances, and I came up with a list of 707 of them across the country. And it says these are municipalities that have specifically said that all city parks and/or specifically named city parks are smoke-free. It does not include those municipalities that have designated smoking areas in city parks. Those that provide coverage only a certain number of feet from playgrounds or youth areas, or those that only provide coverage during youth events. So we're certainly not the first. There's quite a few on here that prohibit smoking, period, in the park. And, it's to me, the enforcement thing goes back to kind of like the stop sign. What's the difference between a full stop, back in the days when I was taking driver's ed, and you said 1, 2, 3, and then you went, so you made sure you came to a stop, versus a couple of rolling stops I saw this afternoon on Main Street. What is a stop and what isn't a stop? I'd be inclined to make it very clear and to emphasize the point that smoking is not good for you. Whether or not we have somebody to stand there and enforce it or not, I don't think is the issue. I think the issue is providing a quality of life and a quality of place. And I think that tides have changed. When I was a kid, both my parents smoked. I know there's some closet smokers that don't smoke in front of their family, that go off and hide someplace. And I don't think we're doing ourselves any good. I think we ought to say parks, recreation areas are smoke-free, period. That's my opinion.
And well said. Well said.
Well, I've been thinking about that same issue too, and came to the conclusion before Rich started his little speech here that I'm a reformed smoker. I cannot stand to smell cigarette smoke. And it doesn't matter where you're standing, outdoors, if somebody's smoking 500 feet away, I can still smell that cigarette smoke, especially when the wind changes a little bit. So there really is no true designated area for smokers, because as the winds change, it manages to come at you from a different direction. Let me address the issue of the e-cigarette, the electronic cigarettes too, that I was vehemently opposed to having that in there until I got some literature this evening that shows that the electronic cigarette is more or less, it's governed, sale is governed by the FDA. It's neither been approved nor disapproved as an effective means of ceasing to smoke. My opinion of it was that if it's an item that's going to help somebody to cease smoking, then we should leave it on there. But after reading this, there are areas that actually part of whatever's in this electronic cigarette, whether it be the nicotine or something else in there, that still provides in the vapor an irritant to some people. And there are states that have banned the e-cigarette, the electronic cigarette, completely. There are cities that have banned the electronic cigarette. I was afraid perhaps of being sued because it was a legitimate way of ceasing smoking, but the Attorney General has said that there is no proof that it does help in ceasing smoking, unlike the patch or the nicotine gum or something like that. So I'm in favor of passing this bill tonight as it is written, and let it go as it is, and if there be issues with it later, then let those come forward in the form of whatever anybody wants to take.
Call for question.
Question's been called. All in favor of the ordinance signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. There wasn't a tie. I don't have to vote, but I do support this. I do support it. And as far as enforcement, I guess I've told some people, you know, it's sort of like the dog and cat thing. It's illegal for your neighbors to let dogs and cats run loose across your yard. And somebody will call in and complain, and we'll say, well, do you know whose dog it is? Yes. Will you sign a complaint? No. Oh, no. But occasionally, it gets to a point where a neighbor will sign a complaint. So I'd say that this being on the books, that there'll be a point in time where somebody's bothered enough by it, they'll sign a complaint.
Well, I think that if we have somebody around here that can get us some signage, and we can get it put up properly, especially during the upcoming festivals, it can be put up where it can be taken down if there's not a festival or something like that going on. We have an influx of policemen coming in during the Strawberry Festival, and if they could just be made aware of it, enforce the law. It is the law. If you see it, enforce it. I know that Chief Greger, if he sees me speeding out there, he's going to enforce it.
If he can catch me. Okay, let's move ahead to second and final reading, ordinance number 373, increasing cemetery fees. David?
In your packet, before I read this on the next reading by caption, you have my letter to the Record Delta along with the legal ad that appeared as a Class 2 legal ad the last 2 Wednesdays before tonight's meeting. The public was put on notice that this would be considered by council on final reading this evening. And at your public hearing, there no comments were registered. So if you act on this tonight, 30 days from today, this will go into effect. Ordinance number 373 of the City of Buchanan. An ordinance 1, increasing previous rates and charges and amending administrative rules and regulations, policy enactments, resolutions, and/or ordinances of the City of Buchanan respecting the operation of all municipally owned cemeteries. 2, amending ordinance number 319 of the City of Buchanan. And 3, reaffirming the city's administrative rules and regulations respecting the city's operation of its municipally owned cemetery. It's now mature before the council.
Motion to approve ordinance number 373 on second and final reading.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, therefore, signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. David, do you have anything further?
Mayor, that's it, except I would remind everyone in the community that this Sunday, the bath salts ordinance will actually go into effect. So that will be the law of the City of Buchanan come Sunday. Yeah. Yes, sir. That's all I have.
Comments and announcements. Ron?
I'd just like to express my appreciation to Councilman Preston for all he's done for the city over his tenure in office. I'd also like to express my sympathies to the family of Sheriff Eugene Crum in Mingo County. To the citizens down there, Sheriff Crum was doing an excellent job in his fight against drugs. And there's no doubt that that's what got him so heinously killed down there. My best wishes to his family. His wife, I understand, has been named the sheriff. And to all our law enforcement people out there, be careful. It's a jungle out there.
Good. Rich?
Just a couple of items, quick like, we moved the time slot of the waste board meeting. We'll update the signs in the lobby and on the website, but now the waste board, which used to meet on the first Thursday of the month at 5 p.m., and we've moved it back to 4 p.m. to align with the rest of the boards. And I'll echo Ron's statements regarding Scott. I don't know. I think they plan to continue to live here. It's just that during the week his job takes him to Pennsylvania now. So that's all I have.
Pam?
I just want to welcome anybody that'd be really interested in filling the vacancy of Scott Preston. I'm interested in somebody that's really here for the interest of the citizens of Buchanan, and I welcome as many letters as possible. I'm excited to see some ladies come out too. That's it.
David?
I would echo what everybody said about Scott. I appreciate the time and tenure that he put in with the city. I think the comments he made about the review of our bylaws is very appropriate for the future. We do a lot of things that we probably shouldn't be doing. We need to take a look at things based on what is really good practices and so forth. And I think that the more I thought about the recommendation you made, Kenny, I think whatever we do, we need to have something so that there is a process that is consistent and fair in respect to when there is a vacancy before an election. And I think the idea that you put forth and Ron agreed with is not a bad idea, to go to the next highest vote getter if they're still interested in being in that position. I think all three people you mentioned that have indicated interest are all qualified and would be good individuals, but I do think we ought to, at some point in time, the council needs to make a decision that we should have a process that is basically the same every time, so we don't simply, based on personalities or what have you, because we haven't been consistent in the past, and the council hasn't been informed oftentimes who the people that were interested. So if you go back to the next highest vote getter, that would be very consistent, and I think it would be fair if they're still interested. So that's
Probably be a good item for a new charter.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I guess it makes it.
And one other comment I have is based on what's best for the future, I think we ought to ask our treasurer to take a look at home rule. It appears that that's going to pass the legislature, and we're not as large as the cities that have it currently, but I like to see what the cost-benefit analysis would be if we maybe looked at home rule and what it would add to the city of Buchanan. I don't know.
Well, Dave, Michael and I have had some conversations, but I don't think I've talked with Rich some. We've been to some of these municipal league conferences and hear people bantering that about. And I think it warrants a look, and I think Michael has been kind of looking into it, but conversation we had just recently, it was some of these cities that were in the pilot group on that home rule. I hear statements like, well, we reduced taxes and we saved the people money, but we have more revenue. And that doesn't make sense to me, and I've said, I'm not bragging. I have a master's degree. I think that proves I'm educable. Explain that to me. But I think it does bear taking a look at, and we have been taking a look at it, and I think, Dave, you're on the right track. It may not work for Buchanan, but I think we should explore it.
Well, it's worth a discussion anyway.
Yeah, it's worth exploring.
And an analysis, and I think Michael, in his free time, yes.
Should we take this on to Metro government?
Why not?
That's not a bad idea. Long term, that's going to happen anyway, probably.
Okay, my turn. I still have not received any interest. We have some appointments, and I think, are they here? No. But one particularly with the health department board, and if someone's interested in that, I'd love to hear from you. And as to Scott Preston, you know, I appreciate his work very much, and he really pained over this. He tried to leave last fall because he had a schedule conflict, and I encouraged him to hang in there and see what happened. And he told me this last 3 weeks ago that his boss had called them all in, and he said, I have some good news and I have some bad news. The good news is we have all the work we can handle for the next 3 years. Wonderful. So the bad news is it's all in Pennsylvania. And Scott is working, he's an abstractor, and he's working in one of those areas where the courthouse is just flooded with people. And so I understand that they will not let any of the abstractors in the courthouse until afternoon. The mornings are for the attorneys. And so he's working from 12 to 8, Monday through Friday. And it's impossible for him to make council meetings. And he's very regretful that he can't continue. But I wish Scott the best, and I think we'll do a good job. We'll find somebody to replace him, and we'll move forward.
Any other boards besides the health board?
There are several.
We have several points. I think I'll get a list out and let everybody know what they are at the next meeting, and we'll you know, if you don't volunteer, I'm going to come knocking.
I know offhand there's one in planning and there's one in Historic Landmarks Commission. I'm sure there's at least 1 or 2 more.
I think we have an appointment to the CVB.
Yes, I believe we do.
To the Epps County
Park Board?
Visitor Bureau. Park Board.
Park Board?
Several openings.
Stockard.
Okay, we have an executive session for litigation and police personnel per Washington Code 698-4. Motion?
So moved.
Second? And seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it.